Welcome back, folks, to the Get a Grip on Life podcast. On today's show, I have Brooke Write. Passionate about entrepreneurship, wellness, spirituality. She's a coach, so that should be fun. You know, I like those people. But before we do that, have you ever thought about starting a podcast? Yeah, come on, maybe you have. Most people that listen to podcasts in the back of their mind, they think, man, you know what? You should go to getagripstudios.com. That's right, fully virtual. Anywhere in the world, you can go to getagripstudios.com and Scott can produce your podcast. And yeah, good pricing, and it's quick and fast, so go to getagripstudios.com. Welcome to the Get a Grip on Life podcast, Brooke Write.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. It's my pleasure. Let me ask you, what does entrepreneurship mean to you? So that word is used a lot.
Yes.
What does it mean to you?
Well, to me, I guess my definition of entrepreneurship is someone who runs their own business, and you're all in it, like 100% in it. So to me, I feel like, teach his own. I guess some people still want to have like a 9 to 5 or whatever the case may be. But I feel like an entrepreneur is someone who just takes that full jump, takes that full leap into like actually running their own business. They're ready for the risk, they're ready for the challenges, they're ready for the entire journey. And so, they spend their entire time running a business or trying to like achieve their goals and fulfill them. I think that's pretty much my definition of it.
Okay, so I'm not sure if that's, from my perspective, I don't know if that's 100%. Let me ask you a couple questions. You said in it. See, to me, someone who has to work in their business all the time is really more of a sole proprietor. And what I mean by that is in the startup phase of a business, if the business itself relies on the presence of the person who started it, in a sense, it's more like a sole proprietor business. It's not really, they haven't built a system that can thrive in their absence. And I think for me, what entrepreneurs do is, yes, they start off, they're in there, they're setting up the systems, maybe they're setting up vendors, customers, they're doing strategy, but over time they pull away from it and they build a system that can function without their presence.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I think that's the entrepreneurship part. I think a lot of people are in what I call the sole proprietor trap. And the sole proprietor trap, like doctors are in the sole proprietor trap, right? I mean, they make a lot of money, but if they're not doing the surgery or they're not, seeing the patients, they don't make money. Right? Lawyers find themselves a lot of professionals, engineers, they can find themselves in the sole proprietor trap. Whereas we entrepreneurs, what we want to do is we want to create a corporate system which allows others to be replaceable components in it. And then those people, I call them replaceable components, but in a sense, that replacement is the ability to replace people with other people is in fact the aspect which provides the growth for people within the business. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So for me, I think a lot of people mistake entrepreneurship and they think it's business ownership or it's sole proprietorship. And to me, it's not that. To me, it's the ability to create a system in which others can thrive in, deliver profitability on a quarterly, monthly, but whatever your accounting cycle is, without actually having the entrepreneur there.
That makes sense. I think it comes down to like everyone having their own definition of it, It's almost like success. It's like everyone has their own definition of like what is success to you kind of thing, right? So I think some people want to be trapped in that sole proprietor zone. But some people have the longevity goal of like building what you're saying, like a corporation, building something, an empire, so that it can help thousands or hundreds of people, whatever the case may be. I see that your perspective on that for sure.
So I'm not saying yours is right, yours is wrong, and mine's right, or vice versa. What I'm saying is I just want to understand what you mean before we discuss it, right? So then you're helping millennials in a sense. It says here you're focused on guiding millennials on topics and that. When you're talking about entrepreneurship, you're telling them just to give it a try, like get out there and try business ownership as a real career aspiration.
Well, I'm more so talking to people who are already on the journey. So people who are already
Okay.
an entrepreneur, right? And they could be maybe an entrepreneur for a year or so, but they're struggling to, like you said, kind of build that, build into a different, basically take it to another level, right? They're stuck in that phase. And it's like, why are they stuck in that phase? And it's usually because of the internal part, right? So that's where I come in. It's like, let's talk about your mindset. Let's talk about your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. And let's figure out what it is that's holding you back and what's keeping you stuck, you know?
So that's that. Now we're getting into the interesting part. So you're dealing. So you're dealing with people that have a an established business or are thinking to start a business.
Well, most of they have an established business.
Okay.
I do talk to people who are thinking of starting a business, so they're not xed out, but it's more so people who have already, like, you know, they started the journey, so they know what it is, they know, you know, what it is to be an entrepreneur, and so they just need help to kind of keep going to the next level and keep rising, you know, and keep climbing up that ladder.
Sure.
Mhm.
Why? And here's a question that's really interesting to me. Why would they need emotional and spiritual support and alignment and wellness? Like, and I'm very interested in this topic, and but I want to know why it is that you think that when we think about it, it's like, well, I just want to make some money, right?
Yeah.
But you're on this journey. You're a human. You're a human, and you have all these other needs. And why is it important that these entrepreneurs, the people that you're working with, why is it that they need to focus on their mindset, their emotions, their strength, their spiritual alignment, their wellness? Why do they need this?
Well, if you think about it, and it's funny because I always bring up certain examples. There's a lot, like, if you think about especially the most successful entrepreneurs, right, or business owners, and whether they intentionally or unintentionally did it, they all focus on their mindset, right? Because everything, as we know, starts with our mindset, it starts with our thoughts. And so you have to have a positive, resilient mindset, right? And so it does start with your mind, it starts with, and that's why I said it starts with your thoughts, and then it starts with your feelings, it starts with your beliefs, because on this journey, in order for you to keep climbing this ladder, in order for you to keep going, you do have to have this strong mindset, right? You do have to have strong beliefs that's going to keep you going, especially on this journey, because there's challenges and obstacles and problems that's inevitable, right? We all go through it. No matter what kind of entrepreneur you are, we all face it. And what I've realized is the reason why most people get stuck is because they don't know how to overcome that. They don't know how to overcome the obstacles and the challenges and the problems that they face. And it's usually because of their mindset. It's because they're thinking poorly of themselves. They're thinking negatively of themselves. Their beliefs are negative, whether it be about themselves, about their goals, about their business. And so it is important. It's like, how can you not talk about it, right? That's why I always say, like, you can't talk about entrepreneurship without talking about your energy. Everything is energy. Even if you're getting to the game to talk about money, money is energy, and you have to know how to align yourself with that, right? And so that's where I come in. I feel like there's so many people to talk about the business part, which is amazing. We can learn sales, we can learn marketing, we can learn all that from thousands of people, but like, we need to figure out why people are getting stuck on the journey. Because I forgot the percentage, but the other day I heard the percentage of how many businesses actually fail and how many entrepreneurs actually fail.
Well,
And it
the
was a
answer to that is
crazy,
all
like,
of them. The answer of that is all of them fail
oh yeah, for
eventually.
all of them. I wouldn't say fail, then I would say quit,
No,
right?
no.
So
What I mean
the
is, like, what this idea of, like, what percentage of business owners fail within the first 3 years, the first 10 years, right, or whatever. The fact is that
Mhm.
everybody fails at entrepreneurship. That's what it
100%.
is, right? It's like a consistent. It depends on how you look at failure, but every business
Mhm.
closes or is bought or merged at the end of the day. And what
Yeah.
you're saying,
Yeah.
though, with that, I think, is there's a reason why so many businesses fail in the short term, and that's
Mhm.
because the owners or the people driving the performance of the business
Mhm.
need, as well as the goals, the financial goals of the business, they need to be
Mhm.
shoring up their emotional and spiritual strength along the journey in order to get past that hump. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, right? You have to be resilient, because that's the thing. You're right. Everybody fails. Like, that's the journey, and it's fine. But it's like, what happens when you fail? What happens when you get to that point? And most people, that's where they get stuck. right? And most people, that's where they quit even. So some people actually like will quit and they'll just go back to, I don't know, the 9 to 5 or the corporate world, even though the reason why they left is because they wanted to be in that entrepreneurial journey. They wanted that freedom, whatever the case may be. But that one hump, that one challenge, that one obstacle stops most people because they don't have that resilience. They don't know how to keep their mindset strong, how to keep their emotions strong, their beliefs strong, you know? And so, yeah, for sure, everyone fails, but it's like, what do you do when you get to that point?
Well, you know what's interesting is I think it's healthy to look at a paradigm. Okay,
Mhm.
so
Yes.
if you look at the employee paradigm, okay, all
Yeah.
right. So what's the risk of being an employee? Well, the risk of being an employee is that you might get fired, right? That's the risk,
Yeah.
right? But there's no risk of missing your payroll. There's no risk of financial disaster. You get paid. You've chosen to accept a job that has a certain pay rate with maybe commission or bonuses or whatever in the growth trajectory. So there's a sense of safety within that paradigm. The second thing about that paradigm is most businesses, not all of them, but the vast majority of businesses, are putting employees and shielding them from the malevolence of business.
Mm,
So the world of business and the world of employeeship,
mhm,
non-partners, non-executive, that world of being a 9 to 5er, that world,
mhm,
you're very shielded from
mm,
the malevolent side of life.
mm,
And when you go out into the world of entrepreneurship,
mhm.
you need to fortify your spirit and your soul and your mind, because now nobody is going to protect you.
Exactly.
There's no structure of this is fair, that's not fair. Nobody
Mhm,
cares in the world of entrepreneurship what's fair and what isn't. You got to go out there and you got to sell your product or service for more than it costs you. And all you
mm,
get is the difference between those two things. And you know what? You
mm,
get, if you actually are pretty good at what you do and you start to
mhm.
get market share from competitors, they will do malevolent things to take you out. Believe me. Now, some of them will compete fairly, but others will
Yeah,
poach your employees. And they'll
yeah.
poach them not to take your employees and allow them to thrive. They may
Mm,
poach them simply to damage you and then fire your employees 6 months later,
yep.
right? So all of
Mm,
a sudden, as an entrepreneur, you've opened yourself up to a whole whack of malevolence in the world. People actually trying to hurt you. Okay.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that includes the IRS, right?
Mhm,
Now you have to deal with the IRS, right?
yeah.
Now you have to deal with disgruntled employees that maybe they're out to get you. They didn't do a good job and now they're suing you. You have to deal with the bank. They don't care. You put your house up, son, they're going to take your house, right? So I think what a lot of people, when they're dreaming of the world of business, they're thinking of cases of Courvoisier and Davidoff cigars, right?
Yeah.
But the reality is that you have to face this malevolence down. And I think when you're talking about shoring them up emotionally and building up their strength and their spiritual energy, what you're doing is you're doing that because they absolutely need it. And why do they need it? Because they're going to encounter huge difficulties and problems that have to be
Exactly.
overcome.
Exactly. You perfectly said, right? Like that's what I was saying. Like on this journey, it's like it's inevitable. It's like you said, no matter what, it could be customers, people, other businesses, anything. Like there's always going to be something coming at you, and it's like if you don't have that foundation internally, then yeah, it's going to pretty much make you quit. Like you know, bring you down in a sense. You know, it's going to make you not want to keep going. So it's like you have to be strong internally. You have to have that internal foundation to keep going, to keep you steady in times of like turmoil, if you will.
Yeah, and you know what? You know what? A lot of people they don't understand. So everyone has, not everybody, but most people in
Mhm,
their life have encountered malevolence in their personal life. They've been
mhm,
betrayed by a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife. Um,
mhm,
Maybe somebody was mean to them for no reason other than to take advantage of them, or in some ways. And there's varying degrees of this. There's really nasty people in the world, actually, and so we encounter it in our personal lives. But in the business world, you may encounter somebody that may devise a strategy just to take you out.
no.
And that strategy can be legal.
Yes. You know, it's funny. I actually went through that last year. I went through that last year. I had someone who was interested in collaborating with me to create programs for entrepreneurs. And so, we were meeting for months. We were planning for months. Well, I was mostly doing most of the planning, but still, we were planning for months, meeting for months, everything. And the whole time, this gentleman had the intention and the strategy, like you said, to actually take what we planned and then collaborate with a bigger organization and then cut me out of it. And so, you know, like I said, like stuff like that happens, right? And it's like, what do you do when stuff like that happens? Some people I know would like, get so like distraught, but I didn't. I literally, of course, have my emotions as a human being, but it literally took me like not even a day to be like, okay, it is what it is. I'm moving forward. I'm going to keep going, right? But that's because it took me like it was practice for me, right? So it was practice for me to like build that internal foundation and resilience, or else I could have just went crazy. I could have even just approached him and said whatever. But like I just decided like, you know what? It's just another obstacle I have to get through. And that's it. That's it. It is what it is. I have to just start from the beginning and keep going. But so that's why it's like it's so important to have that emotional resilience. But yeah.
So it's interesting because I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years now. Okay. And I started really, really young. And I was 21. I'm 42 now. So I was 21 at the time when I started this journey of entrepreneurship. And man, was I naive. Holy mackerel, was I naive.
Yeah.
And I mean one of the things is that you can get fleeced by somebody. At least you know that you got fleeced, and you can thank God for the lesson that you learned.
Exactly. Yes.
But many times you get fleeced and you don't even know it. And you're confused because going into the world of entrepreneurship, you think that everybody's doing good and you believe everything everybody says. You're swimming in a shark tank, son.
Exactly.
That guy wants the money.
Yep.
And
He
used Brooke Write's ideas, her conscientiousness, her time for free. He got her to work for free for months. And the whole time he's sitting back and he's like, and I'm going to be crude here, right? If I may, that dumb bitch is going to do all the work. Oh, hey, Brooke, how's it going? Nice to see you. I'm so excited about what we're trying to do together here. Yeah. You know what? Yeah,
exactly.
You encountered a predator. The guy is an entrepreneurial predator. And guess what? It's legal to do that to a certain extent.
To a certain extent. That's what's so crazy, right? But
and it should be, actually. I hate to say it, but it should be, because you need those lessons to empower you as an entrepreneur. You need those people. Now, I don't believe that those people carry forward positive spiritual energy into the future. I think it eats at them. I think it causes them all manner of problems. And whenever I've encountered someone who's very successful in business, they tend to have certain characteristics. But I know now, after 20 years of entrepreneurship, I know when I'm in the presence of a snake oil salesman. I know when I'm in I can feel it. I can see their emotional energy in a way. I can see their desire to get their hooks into me and use me. You understand what I mean? And I've developed that over years. But if you're going to play this game, Brooke, you're going to have to go through probably half a dozen betrayals before you're not.
For sure. Like, I already know that. That's the thing. It's like, that's why I didn't really, it didn't, make me feel like, oh my gosh. It was more or less like, I'm on the, like, even the other day, I had this webinar, and it's a workshop, and it's like the 4 P's to solving a problem. And one of them is seeing the blessing in the problem, right? Seeing the blessing in the lesson in the blessing. And so that's exactly just how I look at problems. Anything that happens to me, I'm like, okay, I strongly believe that the universe is always trying to teach us something, And for me, that was the first time something like that to that level has happened to me. And so I just knew it. I'm like, okay, this is obviously just something to build me up for what's about to come, because the more you grow and the more you level up, it's like the more lessons you're being given, right? And so yeah, it's like for me, yeah, how I look at it too for that guy is like karma is real. I'm trying to say good and bad karma is real. I believe energy is a boomerang. So anything that you do, whatever you put out, is just gonna come back to you 10 times, So that's why I just let him be, send him good energy, and that's it. Like I don't allow stuff like that to affect my energy, because then it's just going to be the same thing for me. It's just going to be karma for me. So it
I
is what
think
it is.
I think there's a little bit of bravado in what you're saying, although I believe you. I believe you've recovered, okay?
Mhm.
But I think you talked about the three power sources in your biography here, okay?
Mhm. Mhm.
And you talk about mind, body, and spirit as those power sources, those sources of power. I think that's such a fascinating way to put it, okay?
Mhm. Mhm.
But I would argue with you that yes, you're going to send back positive energy. Yes, you're resilient. Yes, in fact, maybe you're anti-fragile with this. In fact, not only are you resilient, but maybe this is actually going to make you grow. Okay.
Mhm.
But I think you're going to have a spiritual scar.
Mhm.
Like I think you're going to bring forward, like you're never going to not have encountered that malevolence. You're never going to not have in the back of your head. So it's like,
Mhm.
oh, people say to me, you're very savvy. I get that a lot. You have a lot of savvy. You know what's going on. That's because I've been burned so many times. You understand what I mean? And I have these scars, these
Mhm.
scars of being burned by other business people, employees, on the entrepreneurial journey. I carry forward these scars. How do we heal our spiritual scars, Brooke?
Ooh, man, that takes well, it's different for each person. So for me, I would say what works for me is like I have this thing where it's like I have this 3-step process. And it's really a healing process. We know healing doesn't happen overnight, but you have to want it. That's where first and foremost it starts with you wanting it. It's a desire. You have to
Hmm.
want to be healed. And so there's this 3-step process I do where it's like acknowledge, accept, overcome. And so you have to go through this phase of like, okay, I acknowledge what happened. I acknowledge how it made me feel. I acknowledge, everything about the situation, everything about the person, everything about, how I reacted or how I responded. All these different things of what you have to acknowledge. And then once you get through that phase and like, okay, you acknowledge every single thing down to the last drop, then you can move on to the next phase where it's like you have to now accept all those things, right? So you have to accept what happened to you. You have to accept how it made you feel. You have to accept the lessons. You have to accept the pain. You have to accept everything about it. And I feel like that's one key thing I think that people forget when they're trying to like overcome something. It's like you have to actually accept it and like fully accept it, not like on the surface accept it, but like spiritually accept it, mentally accept it, emotionally accept it, universally accept it. Right. And then once you get through that phase of like, okay, I accept everything, like I feel it in my heart that I accept it, I acknowledge it. Then you can move on to the next. Like you have to now take those acknowledgments and acceptance and now overcome those things, right? And again, it's like you wanting it. So for me, I'm very big on healing. I don't believe in like holding on to things. Like sometimes it annoys my friends and family because to the point where it's like I just don't hold on to things. It's like I just know that it's a spiritual baggage, I'm trying to say, to hold on
Sure.
to anything. And for sure, I know exactly what you mean of like, in a sense, it's a scar. But for me, how I look at it is it's more of just it's helped me to build my intuition, right? Everything's a lesson, everything's a opportunity to grow. And so that's how I just look at stuff like that. It's like it has helped me to grow. And so now my intuition is now on a whole different level. So now, like you said, it's like when I encounter certain people, now I can read them, now I can read certain signs and all that kind of stuff. But still, I still have this compassionate side to me where it's like I still want to give everyone a chance, but I still have, my emotional guard up. So like now I know it's like if I see certain signs, if I hear certain things or I see certain movements, I know that something may be coming.
Hmm.
So it does take practice. It's not something that's overnight. You have to want it again. I've been on this healing journey from like 2013. So, it's been years for me. This is not something that just happened overnight. It's been years for me. This is something I've literally the same 3-step process of like acknowledge, accept, overcome. That has been something I've literally been practicing since like 2012, 2013. And so that's why it's like so easy for me, even when like family hurts me or friends or whatever. It's like I can literally like just go through this process or through this step by step and yeah, I can just overcome it. I'm really not one of those people that hold on to things. It's a process. Like it was a process, it was a journey, it was a learning thing. But yeah, that's how I do it. Like, it's really like you have to want it first and foremost. I think a lot of people say they want healing, but they don't really, really want it because they don't really, really put the work in. And you have to understand that too. It is work, like internal and like building your internal self, you know, your mindset, your emotions, whatever. It's work. It's literally like the same amount of work you have to put in for being an entrepreneur or running a business. You have to put the same amount of work in when it comes to yourself and your healing, you know? And so yeah, like for me, it took years, but that's why like now I can like it's more simpler, if you will. I won't say easy,
Sure.
but it's more simple.
Well, hang on. Well, first of all, you've
Mm-hmm,
and this is absolutely brilliant, Brooke.
hmm
Like I'm telling you.
hmm
Did you come up with this? Acknowledge, accept, overcome? Is
Oh
that
yeah,
yours? Okay.
yeah,
So that is, to me, that is a path to healing for people. Very, very clear steps. And you know what
yeah.
I love about it? And, like, what I love, as soon as you said it, I wanted to interrupt you and say that's amazing, but I said, better let her talk for a bit but you think about that. So many people cannot acknowledge that other people have treated them malevolently. You know what it comes down to? It's interesting. I'm going to go crazy with it off topic here to come back to this. Do you ever
All right.
ask people, like, do you believe in God? So lots of people say they believe in God, right? Right? They'll say that,
Yeah.
oh, I believe in a good spirit. I believe in the power of the universe, right? And you say to people, do you believe in heaven? They'll be like, yeah, I believe in heaven. Sure, heaven's a great place. Can't wait to get there. And then you say to the same people, do you believe in Satan or evil or an evil force?
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden you just lost 50% of the people because you'll lose. A lot of people say they believe in God. They say they won't believe in evil, right? And then a lot of people say they believe in heaven. They say they won't believe in hell, right? And you got to acknowledge that the evil force in the universe is as present as the good
Exactly.
force.
100%.
And the evil force
100%.
is can be seductive. It can go to your ego and cause you to spend all kinds of work with some guy who ends up ripping you off. And now you've encountered malevolence. And failure to acknowledge that you have encountered malevolence, evil, true evil, you will
Mm-hmm.
never be able to heal it. And so many people are in denial of the
Exactly.
dark side,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
they can't heal because of that. They can't heal.
Exactly.
Oh, it
Exactly.
must be it must be because their father committed suicide that they treated this me, or it must be something I did, or it must be because that person, I misunderstood what they meant, or we justify the malevolent actions of others somehow because we don't want to admit that this person really screwed us.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yep.
tough.
It is. It
I
is.
really think it is.
But that's exactly it, right? Like you're saying it perfectly. Like that's what you have to acknowledge. Like you have to acknowledge the root of it all, right? And that's why I always love to say it's like you can't heal something without getting to the root of it.
Hmm.
You know, you really can't. It doesn't make sense. It's like trying to heal a plant and you're just focusing on the leaves. It's like no, you have to figure out what's going on in the roots. Like why is it rotting? Like what's happening? Like why is it doing this? You know? And it comes down to the same thing for you. You have to figure out what is the root. Like what's the root of the problem? What is the root of myself? What is the root of all these emotions, feelings, thoughts? Like what is the root and how can I heal it and overcome it? And so that's like I think that's the most important part is to acknowledge every aspect of it, right? Just like you said, like you can't, because I know I've been there. I've heard people say that where it's like they're trying to overcome something, but they don't want to acknowledge exactly what made them get like that, or exactly what made them feel like that, or exactly the person that did it, And it's like you can't do that. You have to actually acknowledge it, and then you can accept it. Then you can overcome it.
How do you? So here's my next question for you.
Mhm.
And as we all exist in this world, we all participate at times in these malevolent actions, and not, as we humans, we all have our own unsavory intents from time to time. Um,
Mhm.
there are forces in the world that can capture us and cause us to behave in ways we wish we didn't. I mean, so many people cheat on their husbands or wives or girlfriends or boyfriends. So many people
Mhm.
steal and don't get caught or whatever. And we're all sinners and we're all make mistakes. We all do these things.
For
How do
sure.
we acknowledge those things? Our own malevolence.
I would say it comes down to knowing who you are. Like really knowing your foundation, what your values are, your morals, your behaviors, your beliefs, your actions. So using me as an example, like I'm always doing some type of internal work every single day, right? And one of the things too in the beginning of my journey was that like I had to acknowledge myself, like how did I treat people? How was I treating people? What was I doing to myself, to others? How was I treating my environment? Everything, like what were my beliefs, what were my thoughts on a daily basis, what were my behaviors, what were my habits, all these different things, and it's both good and bad, strengths and weaknesses. Don't just look at the negative. I think you should look at everything and write things down. I think this is what helps people to really learn who they are, to really learn what their foundation is, to really learn how they can change and how they can overcome. It's really comes down to like who you are, who are you, and I think that's the most important question people should ask themselves every single day, especially if you don't know who you are. Ask yourself that right now and write it down. And especially do it in these categories where it's like, okay, this is what I think on a daily basis. This is how I feel on a daily basis. This is what I believe. These are my values, my morals, all these kind of things. And I think once you know that, you're going to be able to like, okay, shift what you don't want there. Shift the beliefs you don't want, shift the values you want to change, your morals, all that kind of stuff. And then every day now you're going to practice those things. You're going to wake up like, no, this is what I believe in. This is my values. This is my morals. So this is this is how I'm going to behave. This is how I'm going to treat people. This is the things I'm going to take action on. So yeah, I think when it comes down to anything, the most important thing in life is to know who you are, know yourself internally, right? And externally.
So you talk about the accepting, because I actually really love this. I'm going to write it on my mirror. So right now I have written on my mirror, pray, say, weigh. So every morning I pray, then I say my goals, and then I weigh myself. Okay. So I love that, but I'm going to replace it with acknowledge, accept, overcome for a little bit because I just love it. But let me unpack acceptance. What's that?
Mm-hmm.
So let me just
both of them.
Yeah, it gets kind of a little crowded. My wife gets, what is all this writing on our mirror for? I can't put my makeup on. But so let's unpack. So we've got to understand acknowledging that we're on both sides of this. We have to acknowledge when we are malevolent and when we've been victimized. The other side of it, let's say accept. So I want to unpack a bit of some words again, because I want to know what people mean when they speak words. And we don't always know what we're talking about, right? Like entrepreneurship. What did you mean? What did I mean? So we understand what each other means. So accept. I think accepting this has two aspects to it. One is shame, and the other is guilt. Okay? And what I mean by this is that when we've been victimized, we feel shame. Okay? Yep. We don't feel guilty. People mix up those two words a lot, right? So we feel when we've been naive, when we have been ripped off, when we've allowed ourselves to get entangled with an egotistical narcissist or a passive aggressive blame shifter or somebody that uses nefarious emotional and spiritual and techniques to take advantage of us. The emotional response is shame. Okay? So we feel ashamed. We don't want other people to know that we got ripped off. We hide it. People don't, if you take up, and I hate to go on this topic and we'll go there and come back quickly, but when somebody's sexually assaulted, they often hide it.
Yeah, 100%.
They often protect their victimizer, right? You'll see this a lot. It's like a Stockholm syndrome or something. They'll protect it, right? And when we've been the victimizer, so we've ripped somebody off or we've done something we shouldn't do or we've engaged in a business interaction that maybe we were being less than, less than frank in our intentions or whatever it is, and we've gone down that ego path or whatever, then we feel guilt, right? And and so I think the reality is I think both of those emotions are good if they're experienced in a short-term setting and we do something to exercise them. But if we've acknowledged that we've been burned, but then we buy into the shame game, or we have a guilt trip that we won't apologize or we won't make amends or we won't release, I think that's how we get trapped in the accept part. We can't get to overcome. because we've accepted it, but we almost enjoy our secretive shame in a way. There's like there's a joy. I can see it sometimes with people on the podcast that I've recorded in the past where they actually embrace their victimization in a sense. You understand what I mean? Like they want to protect that status. They don't want to overcome it.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that a lot. Definitely.
Why is that? Why
But
do
that,
we do that?
I have no idea. I really wish I knew. I think some people are still I think it comes down to being stuck again, right? I think it comes down to being stuck. You have to figure out what's keeping you stuck. Like it could be maybe they're really not ready to let it go. They haven't been through that process of actually acknowledging it. And I think when it comes to the guilt and shame, it goes into the first one because you have to acknowledge the feelings too and the emotions that arise from that situation, right? So if we're going to talk about sexual assault, right? Because I've actually been through that. That was what made me begin this whole journey. And so I had to acknowledge it. I had to acknowledge that I felt embarrassed, that I felt ashamed, that I felt even just guilty for not even just saying anything and not talking about it. I felt guilty for the way I treated myself, because I held on to it. It happened to me when I was 5 years old, and I had held for like 15 years. So I didn't let go of it until I was like 2021 or start to let go of it. And so when I was going through this phase and this process, I had to acknowledge all that. I had to acknowledge the hurt that I caused myself, the hurt that I caused others. I had to acknowledge all those, uncomfortable feelings, even just that feeling uncomfortable. Like that is one of the strongest or the most common feelings that people go through is that they feel uncomfortable when they go through situations like that. And so I had to acknowledge all that. So I feel like when it comes to like the guilt and shame, it goes into the first part. You have to acknowledge it first, right? Because when you acknowledge everything, it's like really acknowledging the entire, almost like if you were looking at a painting, you have to acknowledge the entire painting, the paint strokes, the colors, the frame, everything about it. And then you're going to accept that, okay, so the painter painted it this way. They put it in the frame. You know what I'm trying to say? So you have to acknowledge it first and then accept it. And then once you accept, like, okay, I accepted I felt or that I felt or even feel uncomfortable, ashamed, whatever the case may be, then you're going to go on to the next phase where it's like, okay, now how can I overcome this, right? And then you have to go through it literally like, how can I overcome the shame? How can I overcome the guilt? How can I overcome the actual feelings that arise, the thoughts that arise, the beliefs that came with it, right? And so, yeah, that's definitely a common feeling, though. I think guilt and shame is so common, but you have to first acknowledge that you even felt that way.
Those are guilt and shame are like giant chains, emotional chains that we drag around with us and we carry forward.
Huge baggage. And that's where it comes to the spiritual baggage, right? Because what people think is like, this is the thing too. I think a lot of people think of just the human level, right? So they think like these feelings and stuff that you're feeling is just on a human level, but no, it's on a spiritual level. It's literally spiritual baggage. And so you have to let it go because it's this energy that you're just carrying with you, energy that you're also bringing to the environments that you're on. You're bringing it into other people's lives, your friends and your family, whether you're unintentionally knowing it or intentionally knowing it, you're bringing this energy around, you're spreading it. And so that's why it's so important to talk about the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual, because we're all spiritual beings, right, in human bodies. And so people need to remember that.
What's the difference between the spirit and the mind?
Spirit and the mind. The difference, I would say, it's different in the sense where, okay, I think this is the perfect way to explain it. I listened to this person named, and then Bob Proctor actually differentiates it like this, but Reverend Ike, he used to be one of the biggest, I guess, pastors back in like the 70s, 80s, 90s in New York. And he used to travel around. But anyway, so he used to differentiate it as like the spirit versus the senses. And so it's like your spirit versus your ego, right? And so the ego is the mind, ego is the thoughts, the emotions, the feelings. But your spirit is the one that, like, their spiritual selves, our higher selves. That's what, they know what's right. So my spiritual self knows what's right. So if I have a thought, for example, that's like a fearful thought or a doubtful thought, I'm not going to listen to my ego. I'm going to listen to my spirit, and your spirit's always going to tell you, what's right. It's almost like yesterday I posted on my Instagram about like the angel versus the devil, and that's pretty much what it is, right? Or even Napoleon Hill talks about it. Like he says, the devil is a negative force in life, right? And so the angel is obviously the positive force in life. And so you have to learn how to differentiate those two. So when it comes to your mind and your thoughts, to me, I think the thoughts is the it can be, I guess, I would say the ego. It's the senses, right? But your spiritual self is more of like your spirit is talking to you. It's I have to figure out how to actually explain it. So thank you for challenging me on that. I have to figure out how to actually explain it. But because you know when something makes sense in your mind, but you have to figure out how to actually.
Of course, that's what we're doing right now. We're trying to figure it all out. So, you know, it's interesting that you mentioned the word ego. So, you know Mike Tyson?
Yes, of course.
Okay. So I listened to him on the Joe Rogan experience. I listen to podcasts too because I love podcasts. But I listened to Mike Tyson on the Joe Rogan experience, and it's interesting because the purest form of competition we have is like boxing and MMA, right? Two people in a ring, two people in the cage. Who's going to walk out? Who's going to get their arm raised? It's very pure, right? There's no coach. There's coach, but they're not coached while they're coached in between. But while they're fighting, man, that's two people fighting, and we're going to see who's going to win here, right? And it's interesting because I was listening to Mike Tyson, and he's like, I couldn't have become the heavyweight champion of the world without my ego, right? And he's like, I had to, when I was heavyweight, you know, I'm going to try to, I'm heavyweight champion in the world. I had to build around my thing. And I said, I want to buy 3 tigers and I want to wrestle tigers. And he gets into that ego place, right? And now he's wrestling tigers in his underwear. And, you know, and his life just spirals out of control. You know what I'm saying? But there's a sense in which we need our ego. There's a sense in which our spirit is our essence, our spirit is who we are. And it's who we actually are today, who we were when we were kids, and who we're going to be in the future. That's our spirit. But our ego is like this siren call or something where you want to listen to it in a sense because it'll make you become the heavyweight champion of the world, or it'll make you start a big business because your ego is your mind is what's going to create the vision, or it's going to make you solve the problems. Your essence, your spirit, that oneness of being that's in communion with the universe, that's not going to make you come up with decisions and ideas. So you need to follow that ego, but you have to be aware that it can lead you to destruction as much as it can lead you to success.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you on that. But I also challenge you on that. So I agree with you in a sense because it's just like the positive, negative force in life, right? You have to learn how to balance it. So it's the same thing with the mind and the spirit and the ego. We just have to learn how to balance it. But I challenge you in a sense where I do feel that, especially this is why I believe in meditation so much. I feel like meditation is like, it has changed my life. I feel like when I need to make the right decisions or do the right things or take the right actions or go the right way, I have to meditate, right? And that's what gets me into connection with my spirit. And she hasn't let me down today, you know, up until today, you know? So I feel like it's a balance. So I get what you mean with the ego and the spirit, but I think it's a balance because I feel like for me, when I listen to my spirit, I make better decisions. But at the same time, I guess now I'm thinking about it. I see what you're saying with the ego.
We need our ego. Like, see, here's the thing. So you ever hear someone say, like, it's a good way to put it, right? So I can't speak to him. He's in his ego, right? You'll hear that. He's in it, right? You can't be in your ego, right? I'm the heavyweight champ. And you see it especially in boxing and MMA because it's absolutely the biggest egotistical thing for men. I don't know about for women, but as a man, I can look at, you know, I'd love to put on a championship belt. Like, come on, man. Heavyweight champion of the world. You strap that belt on. Every woman wants to be with the champ. They don't want to be with the non-champ, right? I'm the champ, right? So you can see, but you look at a Conor McGregor. You look at a Mike Tyson, right? You look at John Jones. It's that's where the ego is the most powerful. You're the toughest, strongest man in the world. Right? You're the heavyweight champ or you're the lightweight champ, but I'll fight anybody. You're not going to go fight John Jones, Conor McGregor. We know that. You're never going to do that. But you say it anyway because you're so deep in your ego. You see these guys. And what happens to them? So many of them get stuck in the ego trap. Conor McGregor has problems with the law. Mike Tyson ends up in jail, right? It's so difficult to live in that ego space, but they never would have got to those heights without their ego. So you need to listen to your ego.
Yeah.
But again, like I think you're 100% right. You need to balance that with an essence, your spirit. You need to go back to meditation. If you don't like the word meditation, then spend some time with listening to God. Whatever words you need to change to make it make sense for you, spend some time quiet in nature where your eyes are closed and you're just allowing your senses to evaporate and you're entering that spiritual place or whatever it is for you. I call it meditation as well. I have a meditative practice, daily meditative practice that I participate in. And I agree with you, but that's how you balance that ego and you come back from the ego's telling you, you can do it. You can be the heavyweight champion of the world. Come on, man, work out, work out. But then if you become the heavyweight champion of the world, you got to say, can you stay the heavyweight champ? Right? Can you keep your business going? Are you going to buy into this egotistical trap that, you know, it wasn't the other people around you that helped you. It wasn't your society. And, you know, when Barack made the point that you didn't build the roads, he wasn't criticizing entrepreneurs. He was simply saying, you're operating in a structure that is lifting you up. Acknowledge it. Right? And so he was... I'll tell you this one. The one president of the United States, I'm a Canadian, so I can speak about this. You've gone from non-ego to complete egotistical narcissist. No, I like Barack and I like Donald Trump. I like both of them actually to certain extents, and I have a lot of respect for both of them. So, and I'm a Canadian, I can say that, so I don't have to take sides. But I really appreciated what Barack was going to do. And actually, you know what's interesting? I'm going way off topic here. I want to say this on my show, so I'm the first person to say it. Within 50 to 100 years, I bet you Barack Obama's face will be on Mount Rushmore. And the reason why is not because of his policies, but what he represents for America.
Yeah.
And none of those guys that have the George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, none of those guys have their faces on Mount Rushmore because of their policies. They have it because of what they represent for America. Right?
Yeah.
George Washington is the father of a nation. Abraham Lincoln was the ender of slavery. These people represented a movement in society, right? And so I think Barack's face, hopefully in our lifetimes, we'll see that happen. But anyway, way off topic. But that's because he didn't exist in that ego space. You know, he followed his ego, but he backed away from it. And that's why he was so presidential and such a well-respected person. But well, I mean, if you don't respect him, then shut up because you should respect him. Just because you disagree with his policies, that's a different story. But anyway, I'm way off topic here. But yeah, so I mean, we need to follow our egos, Brooke.
Yeah. No, I now, especially now that you put it like that, I completely agree with you. Because you're right. Because like, even if I think for myself, it's like operating my spirit, but at the same time, my ego is like, I want to be the best, you know, that's what I'm doing. I want to be the best coach. I want to be the best author. I want to be the best entrepreneur. And so that does drive me as well. But it's like my spirit does keep me grounded in a sense where it's like, I don't let my ego override me. So again, it just comes back to that balance. But I think it is important to just even know the difference and to know how to balance the two.
Why does the body matter? So like, you know, somebody, you know, and I have a lot of people that come on the show and they're very physically fit and they credit that as part of their mental resilience is that I run, you know, an Ironman marathon, or I get up every morning and I run 5 miles, and I listen to that, and you know, and I work out every day. I like to go to the gym, but I'm a little bit wary of extremes. You know,
What's the body?
Let me know what you mean by body. You're talking the sensual body? Are you talking food? Are you talking about exercise? What do you mean when you're talking about body?
So here's the funny thing. So when I'm talking about the body, I'm actually talking about habits and behaviors, right? So if you know, there's been a lot of research now. This like the whole science movement is now moving into like the areas of metaphysicalness, mindset, blah 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 blah. And so Dr. Joe Dispenza, he talks about a lot, and he talks about how our bodies are the ones that actually hold our emotions, and our bodies are the one that actually controls our habits and behaviors. And so when I'm talking about the body, I'm really talking about your habits and behaviors, right? Because, yeah, for sure, exercising, all that kind of stuff is important for your entire being, regardless. But your habits, especially as an entrepreneur, your habits matter, right? And especially, I know your habits matter. And so when it comes to being an entrepreneur, when it comes to like learning how to or overcoming the obstacles and achieving your goals, you have to have good habits. You have to have healthy habits that are going to keep you in alignment with that, right? The thing is, with a lot of entrepreneurs who I talk to and come across, is like that's one thing that they lack, is having a consistent, healthy habit, and that's why they get stuck. Because when you have a healthy habit, that's what can help you get unstuck. And it could be just exercising. It could be, I don't know, getting up and walking, whatever the case, whatever the healthy habit is to help you, staying in line with your goals and staying in alignment with who you are, staying in line with, positive energy and whatever. It's important to have that, right? And so when I talk about the body, it's really about the habits. It's really about your behaviors. Like, how do you behave every single day? What are your habits every single day? Or what is even the habit of you, like when you do come to a problem or encounter an obstacle? What's the number one thing that you do immediately, right? Everyone has a habit. And so sometimes when people encounter a problem, their quick habit is to, like, get super stressed and overwhelmed, or whatever the case may be. It's a habit for them to be stressed. But like, how can you, like, now that you know that, now you acknowledge that habit, now you have to accept the habit and change that habit now to making it so now every time, because like we said, it's inevitable, problems and encounters and obstacles, it's inevitable to encounter those things. And so how can you change your habits now to overcome those things when they do happen, right? And so that's what I mean mostly when it comes to the body, is like your habits and behaviors, because those matter. Like,
I agree with you. It's interesting. I when I look at it, so I read a book about habits. I can't remember what it was called. I'll probably look it up and I'll put it on the link it to this podcast. But what their point was, it's like with children, you can break a bad habit in 2 to 6 weeks with a child.
Mm-hmm.
Teenager, you need 2 to 3 months. With an adult between the ages of, say, 20 and 50, you might need a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that means that you actually have to actively focus on changing the habit before the pathways of your brain will be changed. So the good news is you can change your bad habits. The bad news is it might take a lot of work and a long time. But here's what's interesting for me. I look at it like this, okay? Or, you kind of said there's a either or. There's like a theme to this, like order and chaos. We want to straddle that a little bit in our ego's place, and that in our spirit and mind acknowledgement. But a lot of people, they'll get up in the morning and be like, I'm overweight or whatever. I want to be fit. So they'll start going to the gym or whatever, right? But maybe the first step would be to stop doing the damaging behaviors. Right? So if we stop for a second before we say, I'm hiring a personal trainer and I'm going to spend this money on this gym membership, but I'm going to keep doing the damaging behaviors, but I'm going to try to add the good things. And I mean, great, if it works for you, great. But I would say the first thing you can do, whether you're in a relationship, like a marriage, or with your daughter or son or your mother or father, if you were to just stop doing the things that damage the relationship, or you were to we all know what we're talking about, although a lot of people are afraid to admit it. Or you were to stop, and if your relationship to yourself, if you were to stop doing the things that damaged your body, right? Overeating, not sleeping enough, not drinking enough water, drinking too much alcohol, right? These types of things. If you just stop the damaging behaviors, like said, okay, what is it that I do that damages me? Not how can I make it better? How can I stop the damage?
Exactly. And that's where the acknowledgement phase comes in. It's like you have to acknowledge things, right? So let's use that example of, like, okay, you're overweight and you want to do better, you want to get slim. You have to first acknowledge what it is that even got you to that point, right? And it starts with everything. It starts with your thoughts, your feelings, your habits, and your behaviors. So if you're overweight, what is it? And it's the common, he has a habit of eating too much, or eating too much takeout, or eating too much grease, or whatever the case may be. You have to acknowledge that. You have to acknowledge, okay, am I an emotional eater? Am I a stress eater? Or you have to acknowledge all these little things, because, like you said, you can't overcome it, right? Or consistently overcome it. Like, yeah, like how people always say, like, January, people always go to the gym as a New Year's resolution, and they end up quitting by the end of January. Why? It's because they didn't actually acknowledge their bad habits and behaviors and thought process and beliefs and all that before they even decided to go and try to achieve this goal. You see? And so you
Or not,
have to,
or maybe they're still only sleeping 5 hours a night, and they're eating crappy food. They're not spending time in nature. They don't have any time, even 5 minutes a day, where they're sitting quietly with their own mind. Like, think about how many, like like my kids, I have to grab them and, like, when I get home and say, look, you're going to go for a walk for an hour. No, Dad, no headphones, no earbuds, nothing. You're going to walk and just let your mind take over. Let the world happen around you and see it. But you know what? It's interesting. For me, I did two things, and I don't know if anyone else will do this, and Scott's going to laugh. But so the first thing, I really wanted to get very, very fit. I'm like, you know what? I haven't been really fit since I was 19 or 20 years old, and I have 4 kids, and I want to get really fit. So I actually did it. But, I had to change my relationship to food. Right now, I was never overweight, but I wanted to get really, really fit. So I had to change my relationship to food. And you know what I did? I couldn't figure it out. I tried keto and this and these diets. And I said, there's something wrong. I'm not in control of what I put in my mouth when it comes to food.
You acknowledge something.
Bingo, right? How do I change that? And so I thought about it in my meditative practice. I'm like, well, what food do you hate the most? What's the grossest food in the world for you? And so many people say to me, you're punishing yourself. But I was actually doing myself a huge favor. So what I did was, for 6 months, every single day at lunch, instead of having lunch, I ate a can of raw sardines. Okay,
oh my gosh.
Raw sardine. I'm going to go do it right after this because I'm back. I realized that I went back. Raw sardines are disgusting. Okay. But at the same time, they're also very healthy as long as they don't have mercury in them if you get the good ones. And they have lots of wonderful oils and protein and all sorts of things that your body actually loves to digest and put into your body. Right? So it's like a counteract effect. I did this for 6 months, and every day at my office, people are like, oh, God, that's so gross. But I changed my relationship to food. That doesn't mean I don't like to eat beautiful food. I love delicious food. But I changed my relationship to food by inserting control over it. It's like, okay, you can eat this. Now, I'm not recommending this for anybody. It was just my way out. The second thing was I signed up after I got my wellness routine going. I signed up for 96 personal training sessions after I read the Habits book. And so I forced myself to go to the gym 3 times a week, every week for a year. And now I hate it when I don't work out. I've changed the habit formation in my head. And I'm not trying to say I'm Mr. Wonderful. I'm just trying to say that you can change your habits, but it takes a long time. It takes commitment. And a lot of times you have to change your relationship to things like booze, sex, gambling, drugs. You got to change your relationship to these things.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. I think you hit the nail. I think it's the same thing for me. Like, so I'm actually vegan. So I've been vegan since 2017. And even that, like, it was a process for me, but it was the same thing of like, it had to be consistent, but I had to still go through the acknowledgement phase of like, okay, acknowledge foods I don't like, or acknowledge what foods I did love, or acknowledge even the worst thing or the best thing is acknowledging what you crave. Because that can really make you inconsistent. Like if you especially are one to always go back to your cravings, I had to acknowledge what I craved a lot. And so once I acknowledged that, I always had it in my mind, like, okay, I know that when this craving comes, I already acknowledge it. So I know I'm not going to fall for it. You know what I'm trying to say? And so I know I have to accept the fact that I'm not going to eat these things anymore. And so that's what helped me keep consistent, at least, was acknowledging, accepting that. So yeah, it's the same thing, but like it does take practice. Like you have to stay committed. You have to stay dedicated, especially when it comes to the working on yourself. That's probably like the most time consuming thing is like working on yourself. Right. So yeah, for sure. Like take a year. Everyone's different though. 'Cause I heard that some people, it takes them 6 months for something to stick.
We're all different.
Everyone's different.
But I mean, when you're an adult, it's a lot harder than when you're a child. That's for sure. Children can change their habits 100%. Much quicker than adults. Let me ask you. Yeah. Let me just comment on that veganism. Whether it's veganism, whether it's keto or whatever, what you did was change your relationship to food. You changed it, And maybe there was a moral reason behind it, because like I'm in the lighting business. I've had the pleasure and the non-pleasure of seeing all different kinds of factories. Okay. And I'll tell you, not many people can, if you went to a slaughterhouse or an industrial chicken farm, I've been to all these places. Okay. And I've been to natural resource extraction in, like most people have not seen an open pit mine, for example, right? Like where coal comes from, right? Like how we get these things. But anyway, that's a whole other aspect. Let me ask you, why the focus on millennials? Are you a millennial?
I'm a millennial myself. So it's funny. Someone asked me this the other day. It's not necessarily, well. So focus. I just niche down. Let me just be honest. So it was a niche down. You know, in business, it's good to be niche down. But it was also something that I realized this was already my audience and my target market. So since I started this journey in 2012, 2013, this has always been my target market. This has always been my audience, was millennials. I do have some people older than millennials who still do come to me and approach me, but my main audience has always been millennials. So I figured when I did start this coaching business, I just might as well just keep it with millennial entrepreneurs, because they're the ones I've been helping out most of the time.
Yeah, see, I find them, and this is, I'm not a millennial, I'm a Gen Xer. Okay. So I'm kind of trapped. I'm in the trap generation between the baby boomers and the millennials. So the millennials are the children of the baby boomers. That's basically what they are, in a way. Not 100%, but pretty close to it. And they're like, there's like our population graph kind of goes like this: baby boomers, Gen Xers, millennials, like that, right? Because there's more baby boomers, blah blah blah. They have more kids, and there's like this kind of curve like this. So they get a lot of attention. Okay, because they're an economic force, they're a political force, so they've been labeled, right? So the summer of love was when the baby boomers came of age, right? So the whole '60s movement was when the baby boomers came of age, right? And so we're gonna look back at this time, whatever, and say, oh, this is when the millennials came of age, and this is what it's called, and whatever else. But here's my point. They are the most labeled and labeled, and what's the right word? Generalized and stereotyped generation in history.
100%.
You're not a millennial. 100%. You're just a human being, actually. Cast off your label.
No, I agree. I think it's just because of, like, especially with the social media era, I think it's with how much power, if you think about it, how much power they have, especially on social media. I think millennials are the most outspoken now. I think that's all it comes down to. I think it comes down to the media aspect, the social media aspect, and that's why they're so. I think that's why they're so labeled. I think that's why they're so targeted in a sense. Because even like doing what I do, coaching, speaking, even for public speaking, there's so many, just like when I'm doing some events and stuff, it's always like millennials. They're looking for millennial audiences, millennials. Like the word is just so powerful. Like no matter what you're searching for, or whatever the case may be, millennial. Even for corporate, they're hiring coaches for millennials. Like they're specific about it. You know what I'm trying to say? Yeah, so it's not like they're hiring coach speakers for, entrepreneurs. It's like millennial entrepreneurs, millennial employees, or whatever the case may be. So it is a very powerful label. Very. It can be a good thing, I guess.
I think the label in and of itself is benign. People label things so they can come to understand them better, right? The problem I have is, let me go twofold here. So I didn't even know that my generation had a name until I heard about millennials.
Yeah.
And someone told me that millennials are born like 1982 to 1999 or whatever. I'm like, I'm not born. Does my generation have a name? And people are like, I don't know. And then eventually came out that I'm a Gen Xer. I'm like, oh, great. Well, now we have a name, right? But I mean, for people out there, especially if you want to be an entrepreneur, I would say resist labels. Resist them. Don't let people label you by your race, by your generation, by your, and the people that are labeling you are probably looking at you in a predatory fashion. They want to put you in a box. And so I went to a conference, and it was I'm in the lighting business, so I go to different I run a lighting podcast, so I do live streaming from different conferences, and I get paid to do it, so it's a good gig. I like to travel around and see things. But I'm at this conference, and this like bozo, I'm going to call him a bozo because that's what he was, and I mean not to be cruel, but he's on this, and he's joking about millennials, and I felt like, oh, but they quit their jobs and they did this and that, and I'm like, you're talking about people, dude. Like, you're talking about human beings. And the crowd of people his age are laughing at this. And it's almost like, why don't, people hear so little encouragement, man. Why don't you encourage them instead of telling them all of their flaws? Their generational flaws. They can't live without their cell phones. They can't, they don't want to keep a job. They don't do, the way our generation was, and we're all baby boomers. And it's like, why are you making fun of your children all the time, dude?
Mm-hmm. You're right.
And as a non-millennial from the outside looking in, it's like, dude, why are you making fun of your kids? Well, I'm not making fun of my kids, but your generation is making fun of another generation all of the time, actually. Mm-hmm. And saying bad things about them all the time. What do you hear good about millennials? What's good about millennials?
It's true. I'm thinking about it now. I'm
Why do they need coaches all the time? I'm not saying you're I get you. It's a niche. You're focusing in a niche, and there's money there, and people are going to pay you. Why do they need coaches? Why do they need all this stuff? I mean, entrepreneurs need coaches, that's for sure. If they're going to transition from being an employee to an entrepreneur, for sure. Find help. Get a group of advisors around you that you can afford and that can help you, especially with the mind, body, spirit stuff. 100%. But why do they need special treatment? Why? Because your kids can't hack it?
Yeah.
What is with this paternalism from one generation to the other? And in fact, who was the most rebellious generation of all time? Who unshackled themselves from their parents, like the baby boomers?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, why don't you treat your kids generationally with the same respect you demanded from your parents when it was the 60s and the 70s?
Yeah, 100%. It's true. That's interesting.
It's like this paternalism. It's like the one generation is making the other generation live at home. And then they're mad at them because they're still in the basement. But they won't let them go. It's like the tyrannical mother and father crap. It's like, you can't make it on your own, so you have to live in my basement. I need to hire coaches for you, and you don't vote, and you don't get involved, and you don't get involved in your community, and you don't own a home, and we need to hire people to help you. It's like there's a lot of contempt from the baby boomers to the millennials, and I don't like it. It bothers me. I hate all the labels, and I never heard a speech. I've been to so many conferences, and they talk about millennials. I never heard them say, yeah, you know what the good thing about millennials is?
And there's a lot of good things. I was even talking about that the other day. I feel like one thing that's so special too, if we're talking about wellness and healing, I feel like the millennials, especially in this, or whatever, if you want to say millennials, in this era, that conversation has been much more advanced now and much more enhanced, as opposed to, I guess, the baby boomers and whatever, like mental health, all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of good things. There's a lot of millennials now who are wanting to heal and stuff like that. I know a lot of baby boomers, if you will, and who didn't know about these things. They have no idea about mental health. They have no idea about emotional well-being, spiritual health, all that kind of stuff. And so to me, there's a lot of good things that millennials offer or are doing or are talking about. So it is interesting that I never really thought about that. I'm thinking about it now, but I never really thought about that before. Because you're right, there's a lot of negative talk when it comes to us millennials. But I don't know. That's pretty interesting. I guess that could be a talk in itself. Why is there so much negative talks?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, or maybe people just need encouragement, actually. and
Yeah.
regardless of their generation, and maybe, you know, everyone could stop the negative talk, and maybe, it's like there's like all this polarization, generation to generation, polarized. It's us versus them.
Wow.
Politics, it's left versus right. And I need to slap. You're alt right. You're a left wing pinko. You're whatever. And in some ways, the people that are on those extremes embrace those labels and run with them because they're egotistical narcissists on either side, and they love it. But in the middle, there's people, and they're just regular people. And I think the millennial generation is one of the most inclusive, environmentally aware, uh,
Yeah,
long-term focused,
yeah,
unselfish generations in history, actually, and
I
peaceful
agree.
too, I think.
I agree. Like,
You
I
know, and
agree 100%.
and I think the zeitgeist of that generation is one of, let's think about the consequences of our behavior.
Yeah, right. And that's exactly how we think. Like now where it's like that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of good things. It's like and we do think like that, even for us speaking as a millennial, if you will, or me and my friends and family, whatever the case may be, it's like we do talk about that now. It's like we're focused on like, okay, about the generations that are gonna come after us. And not to say I don't know what the baby boomers or whatever we're thinking about, I don't know, but we are more focused on that. And I feel like that's why like the environmental stuff that's going on, all these different things that people are now fighting even more for is important because they're not thinking about themselves. They're thinking about, okay, but what about the people are coming after us? So I think, yeah, there's a lot of good things with our generation. I don't know why the negative talk is very interesting.
Yeah, I encounter it all the time, and it's like this. Let's talk about them and laugh. Let's talk about. It's funny because you ever listen to a Mexican comedian in Spanish?
No.
Okay, so I liked Mexico, and I think the Mexican people are great. But we had this TV on, and it had a Mexican comedy channel. And I think this is hilarious. I don't care. But the Mexican comedian
Mhm.
would be like, say something in Spanish. I don't speak Spanish. My kids don't speak Spanish. And then Gringo would come out, and everyone would laugh. And then it would
Mm.
be like Spanish, 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 Gringo, laugh. Spanish, 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 Gringo, laugh. And you think about that, it's like, oh, okay, so you're making fun of white Americans. All right. I
Mhm.
don't care. I think it's hilarious that you're making fun of them. But in a sense, it's like, in a way, we secure our naivete. We refuse to acknowledge the world and accept it when we put ourselves in these generational, national, racial boxes, and then
Yeah.
express comedy from that position. In a way, it's kind of passive aggressive in a sense. Um, and I think that some of the ills of our society, maybe if you looked at, if as a society we acknowledge and accepted and overcome, or as a
Mhm.
society we looked at the mind, body, and spirit, you know,
Mm.
and I think it starts with the individual and we can project it out. But Brooke Wright,
Sure.
we've spoken for over an hour.
Oh, amazing. Well, that's how good conversations go.
I really appreciate you, and I thank you for your work. And
Thank you.
I encourage you to keep going on it. And I think it's that those three letters are going up on my mirror. Can you tell everybody about your social media and your website and all that sort of stuff?
Yes, yes. So my website is flywithme.com, but it's FLHIGHUITHME.com. And then my social media, you can find me at Brooke Write or Miss Brooke Write on Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. And that's
And
pretty much it.
if you are listening to this and you want to contact Brooke, but you're driving and you can't write it down or whatever, just go to the getagriponlife.com website. Come on, man. Check out her episode there, and all her social media links will be linked there for sure. So we got it. You got you covered if you're driving or you're mowing the lawn or whatever it is that you're doing and listening to this show and you want to reach out to Brooke. Of course, though, what's the most important part? Hey, man, everybody listens to podcasts has a little inkling. Maybe I can start a podcast. Maybe I'll tell you this. You want a little hint? If you're a subject matter expert in something, like truly subject matter expert, like for me, I know hell. My dad sold light bulbs out of my house when I was a kid. I know a lot about light bulbs. Weird, eh? But guess what, man? I'm balling on my lighting podcast, getagriponlighting.com. We're killing it. I'm now going to I live stream from every single major lighting trade show in North America and soon the world. That's right. How did it start? Because I had some weird expertise in light bulbs. Yeah. So if you got some really weird, the podcast, you're not going to start the Joe Rogan Experience. You're not going to start Dan Carlin's Hardcore History. Those places are already taken. But you know where the money is, son? The money is in very focused, specific podcasts on a certain topic that can attract people that are interested in that topic, and then advertisers that sell to people that are interested in that topic will advertise on your podcast. Whoa, Scott, I just gave away the secret, bud.
Man, I was going to save that for the studio blog.
Come on, man. So go to getagriffstudios.com, man, where the experts will show you how I did this from 2016 to 2019. We're killing it, Greg and I, on the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast. It's a full-blown throat slit. We took over. That's right. And so there's still room to move in those spaces, man. So if you got some really weird knowledge, man, don't be afraid. Come on, go to getagrippstudios.com. Or you know what, man? I don't care if you go to getagrippstudios.com. I do care. I'd like to get some money to support the studio. But get out there. Get after it, man. Especially if you're a millennial. Don't let those suckers hold you down, man. Don't let them label you. You don't need to be labeled. You're just an individual. Ain't that right, Brooke?
Right.
Right. So check out Brooke Write. She's hot on the website. Check her out. And of course, I'm super grateful for you, the listeners, all the people that follow us, like us. Love you guys. Bye for now.